Hello and welcome to Spotlight on Sparks. I'm your host, Adam Mayberry. I want to start this show with a question to you, our viewers. Have you done all you can to protect your family from fire? Can you calculate how much defensible space you need around your home? Do you have an evacuation plan? Would you know how to rebuild? Would you know how to recover? If you've answered no to any of these questions, you can learn some answers on this Spotlight on Sparks. Who could forget the Collin Ranch fire on November 19, 2011? The blaze burned across our TV screens and our hearts. Before it was contained, it would cover 2,000 acres and claim 29 homes. Still raw, residents found themselves watching and worried just 2 months later. The Washoe Drive fire flared to life in January of 2012. This time, some 2,000 people faced evacuation orders as hundreds of firefighters fought to save lives and property. Each of these fires is a warning, a wake-up call. Next time, it could be any one of us. That's why the Sparks Fire Department wants to make sure you know what you need to know about living with fire.
No agency can handle some of these large-scale emergencies by themselves. They have to be very dependent upon their neighbors and friends, if you will. Other jurisdictional fire departments, a lot of times we're very reliant upon health services, animal control services, law enforcement, and many, many other agencies to manage these large-scale events.
In fact, there's a long-standing system of mutual aid in place among fire agencies. Generally, a call for help goes first to the neighboring fire department. If an emergency is a disaster, the call for help escalates up through regional and state government, and for the worst events of all the way up to the federal level.
What we would do if we had a large-scale incident here, a fire incident, if you will, we would call on our local partners throughout the region as well as throughout the state, also some federal resources. We would call the Bureau of Land Management. We've got 2 agreements that are key to some of these large-scale incidents. The Nevada Master Mutual Aid Agreement, whereby we would contact DEM and they would acquire a lot of resources through that agreement to come provide us assistance, as well as the Lake Tahoe Regional Fire Chiefs Association Agreement, whereby we would be able to acquire a number of the partners on both the Nevada and the California side of Lake Tahoe.
The danger that's top of mind for many is wild brush fires.
Yeah, the biggest thing, if we're talking wildland-urban interface, and especially in the hillsides east of the city of Sparks, would be to ensure that you've got a defensible space. Living with Fire is an excellent program. Go online, find Living with Fire, and it will tell you about what an appropriate defensible space is for your house and some of those preventative measures that you can take to prepare yourself for a wildland fire. Also be prepared to evacuate. Make sure that you've got your medications in a place where you can easily gather those and take those with you. Those personal belongings that are near and dear to you, whether it's photographs, nowadays they're hard drives with digital photography on them. Also, pets, animals, and any belongings that maybe have been passed down to you that are cherished, those family memorabilia type of items. So my recommendation would be go to Living with Fire, look at that website, and there's a lot of great resources there.
Some of the more common fires everywhere are cooking fires, but
believe it or not, we've got a lot of fires that are started by juveniles. Talk to your kids, talk to them about the importance of fire and the damage that fire can do. We really are seeing an increase in juvenile fire setters in our community. The other thing I also want to talk about is Project Safe. We've got a program that, for free, will put smoke detectors in your house. Number 1 cause of fire deaths is smoke inhalation, not the fire itself. You want to make sure you've got working smoke detectors in your home, which once again leads me to really throw a shout out, if you will, to the people that I've got in the City of Sparks Fire Department. Our fire prevention staff is doing a great job acquiring grants whereby we can put smoke detectors in homes.
Sparks firefighters have to be trained and ready to respond at all times, no matter what the call for help or where.
For us, when somebody calls, we're going to go help. I contact our city manager, let him know that we've got a significant event outside our jurisdiction, and then what we do is we start mobilizing those resources and send people to help. We've been all over the country. We helped during Hurricane Katrina. down in New Orleans. We've gone to California many times. We've also helped our neighboring jurisdictions here as well. Lyon County, Carson City, City of Reno, Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, as well as a lot of the federal partners on the federal lands here in the state of Nevada.
Fighting fire is everyone's concern. We urge you to visit livingwithfire.com. In any disaster event, your goal is to be self-sufficient. That's without electricity, running water, or gas for a full 72 hours. Is your family ready? Once again, that website is livingwithfire.info. Knowing what to do in an emergency is important, not just for you, but also for your fire department's first responders. Training is the key to quick reflexes and fast response time, so our city fire department practices difficult drills routinely. Sparks recently hosted regional fire crews in a hazmat drill. The scenario consisted of a special event in Victorian Square when a drug lab is discovered in a hotel room at the Silver Club.
And this is the closest to the real world that we can get, and it's important to be able to have the guys look at things differently from not a fixed facility, not a predictable type of environment. This actually puts all the single step tools together to go into an unknown situation, mimicking an active hotel, and go in and actually have a hazardous materials incident. And not only have to go in and identify what the problem is, but perform some rescues. Today is a situation that we have Saturday of the Rib Cook-Off. Obviously it's August or the 1st of September, Labor Day weekend. So all of downtown area is very populated. We have a special event. We have a lot of vendors, and this is a big economic draw for the city of Sparks. The scenario is that we have a fully occupied hotel structure, and some of the residents inside the hotel start complaining of nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath, burning sensation when they breathe, burning in their eyes and in their nose and throat. So most of them self-evacuated. The staff of the hotel tried to evacuate everybody, but it got to the point where this burning sensation was too much, so they think they got everybody out. The scenario that we have set up is that our first and engine company gets on scene and touches bases with the manager, and they realize that this is way beyond what just us as an engine company or a fire department can handle. So they ramp up the hazmat team to a level 2 hazmat, get all resources in the valley responding, so we can come and actually figure out what the problem is. The first in crew comes in, they get some intelligence or get some feed that there's somebody inside that is calling them on a cell phone that has been overcome by the sensation of the burning and unable to breathe, and he's still talking on his cell phone, but he can't mobilate or move to the outside of the building. So we have to do a rapid rescue on the front side. So we go in and do a rescue and then go ahead and come out. Then we simulate that we have a chemical lab set up inside. So now we need to go in and do not only figuring out where the problem is, but what the problem is. And there's various different steps to do that, and different levels of chemical clothing that we use. The first steps are done in just regular fire clothing, turnouts, and a breathing apparatus, or SCBA, so that they're not breathing any of the bad chemicals. The majority of the hazardous materials incidents that we go on can be dealt with in such a manner. But there are a few chemicals that will really affect and go right through the suits. And that's when we have to use a fully encapsulated vapor protective level A suit. It's extremely important that we train together with the City of Reno. We do it at least once a month, and that cooperative effort in a small valley or county as Washoe County, we need to try to share those resources. And we've been sharing those resources on the hazmat team for many years. The training is imperative that we get that common line of communication, that comfort level with people that we only see once or twice a month. When we get called to respond as a hazmat team, that's not the time to shake hands and get to know one another. That's the time that the problem needs to be solved.
More than a decade ago, in 1999, the citizens of Sparks voted Mike Kerrigan into office. Councilman Kerrigan is currently serving his 4th term. So it should be no surprise to voters that Mr. Kerrigan is now the city's longest-serving councilman. I recently met up with the councilman at Golden Eagle Regional Park in Ward 4 to reminisce about the past and ask about his vision for our city's future. Councilman Kerrigan, tell us how you became involved with Sparks politics.
Well, I had retired out of the Navy, and I was living in Sparks. We decided to stay in Sparks. And the city councilwoman that was a Ward 4 representative decided not to run again. So I was complaining at the dinner table. I said to my wife, you know, I hope somebody good decides to run for office. And she got tired of hearing me complaining, and she said, well, why don't you run? It was a 1999 election. There were something like 7 people in the primary. I was the longest shot of all, I think, of everybody, because nobody had ever heard of me. I ended up winning the election by 40 votes or something like that.
Well, you're currently the most seasoned city council member on the council.
That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
You've been there longer than anybody.
I feel like I'm a good steak or something, you know.
Well, how have you seen the city change over the last decade?
Well, when I first got on the council, I think we had 37,000 people living in Sparks, and now we have over 90.
That's pretty significant.
So, you know, I mean, almost 3 times as many people living here as when I first became a city councilman. So we've grown a lot. I think the biggest change I've seen, and this is something that the city council should be proud of, you know, up until, you know, recently, we were always considered kind of the bedroom community of Reno. We've always lived in the shadow of Reno, where people lived in Sparks, and then we had to go to work in Reno, go shopping in Reno, do our entertaining in Reno. And I think we've overcome that. And I think now we have places you can shop here, we have places you can go to work, and also places that, you know, you can go for entertainment. So I think that was the biggest obstacle, and I think we've overcome it.
Was that something that was discussed at the city council level in terms of how do we want the city to grow, and what do we want to...
Yeah, I think we've always talked about, you know, having the city have its own identity and come out of that umbrella from Reno. But also, the biggest thing that the people always say is they want to maintain that small city atmosphere. So it was kind of a difficult thing to grow, but still maintain that small town atmosphere. And I think we've done that pretty well.
In fact, we're sitting here at the Golden Eagle Regional Park, which is in your ward.
It is.
And this wasn't here when you were elected.
This was empty land, and I think there was one. Ira Hansen had a little farm right over there, as a matter of fact, and that was it. There was a dirt road up here. It was all BLM land. Yeah.
So this is a feather in your cap, probably a pretty proud accomplishment.
Well, you know, I think the city council should be really proud of this, because we did this without any taxpayer money. You know, we swapped some land with the BLM. In other words, we applied for this land. The BLM gave us this land, and then we had money that when you build a house, some of that money is set aside for parks. So we had that money in the bank, and we sold Don Mello and took that money with the money from our Parks and Rec fund and built this thing without any bonds or without any help from the public as far as taxes go. So we should be really proud of that.
Let me switch gears. You have served on a lot of boards and commissions that require public officials to set policy direction. What are some of those boards and commissions, and what do you think are some of the more important activities that you've been involved with?
You know, I have the luxury, I guess, to say that I sit on the regional board, so I get to interact with Washoe County commissioners and the City of Reno council people. And I think one of the most important things we ever did is buy a water company from Nevada. At that time, it was Nevada Energy. So we bought it from Nevada Energy and turned it into Truckee Meadows Water Authority. I think that was probably the biggest accomplishment of any regional board I've sat on.
You've contributed a lot to the city. What is it that makes you want to continue to serve the citizens of Sparks? I mean, what is it that really makes you tick, if you will?
You know, when you think about that question, some families are, you know, I guess the tradition is to be firefighters. Some are policemen, some are engineers. I guess the Kerrigan family, we've always been public servants. You know, I've been on the city council. Before that, I was in the military. My wife, Cora, is a school teacher. My oldest daughter, Ashley, is the state director for Senator Dean Heller, so she runs the state office. And then my youngest daughter is an officer in the United States Navy. So I guess it's just in our family to serve the public. It's very satisfying to do that.
What do you think will be is in your future? And I'm not asking to make any bold announcements.
You want me to announce what I want to do next?
But because we'll be running this program for many months to come. But But what is it that comes to your mind? Because term limits is going to take a toll on you here in a couple of years, as we're talking, a little bit more than a couple of years. And so you want to continue to serve in public service? You want to retire? What comes to your mind? Or is it just simply too early to talk about that?
Well, no, I don't think it's too early. I think that the public will let me know. They're my bosses, and if something comes up in the next, I have about 2.5 more years on the city council, and if something comes up in 2.5 years and somebody gives me a call and says, hey, we really want you to do this, I'll probably look at it. I mean, retirement is, I retired out of the military and found myself at home by myself, so that wasn't a whole lot of fun. My wife is still a school teacher. I don't know if she'll ever quit being a school teacher because she loves it so much. And I really enjoy serving the public. So I think what will happen in these 2.5 years is that somebody will come up to me, and if they want me to, run for something else, they'll say, hey, it could be the assembly, it could be the state senate, it could be mayor. I don't know what comes up. If somebody wants me to do it, I'll take a look at it.
If you were to hang your hat on 2 or 3 real key items since you've been on the city council that you're proud of the most, what would those be?
There's things we do every day that, people don't realize. And, it's like, oh, we widened Vista to 4 lanes. I mean, that sounds really trite, but people out here that lived out here thought that was the greatest thing. And it took 9 years. I mean, that's how slow the wheels of government work, but it took 9 years of me really chipping in people's ears to go, hey, we need that widening out there. And finally, after 9 years of talking to the RTC, we finally got it done. This is a great facility out here. So, buying the water company, I think, was the best thing that we've ever done, because now our fate's in our own hands, and the citizens and the owners of that. We're all owners of the water company, and we're calling our own shots. And to me, what really sells this town are the people that live here. And everybody that I've talked to that lives in Sparks really likes it here, and they wouldn't live anywhere else. Now, some of them work in Reno, but they'll live in Sparks. And there are so many, believe it or not, we have a lot of Reno firefighters and Reno police officers that live in Sparks and work in Reno. So that's telling you something, that they feel really safe here, and they like it here. So,
well said. I appreciate your time, Councilman.
No problem.
Thank you
Anytime.
very much. How big a deal is a pothole? Well, it all depends on the pothole. Some may not be too noticeable, but if you've ever encountered a bump in the road that really bugged you, then you will appreciate the City of Sparks road crews paving the way to smoother surfaces and calmer commutes. It's a daunting task. There are only 6 employees to take care of 600 lane miles of Sparks roadways. You may have noticed ongoing road work throughout Sparks neighborhoods.
Yeah, there are 3 categories of pavements that we prioritize. They are for preventative maintenance, corrective maintenance, and rehabilitation. And the PCI values for those 3 categories range from 100 to 70 for preventative maintenance, 69 to 40 for corrective maintenance, and below 40 is rehabilitation.
John Erickson, the city's transportation manager, explains the Pavement Condition Index, or PCI.
What the City of Sparks does is go throughout the city and inventory the Pavement Condition Index, which is a PCI. That PCI ranges from 0 to 100, 0 basically being a dirt road, with 100 being a brand new road, which is exhibited here on Richards Way, which was just completed.
For example, what's down the road for Richards Way? How long will a repair like this last?
Approximately 30 to 40 years, and so that's not to say that we wouldn't do maintenance on that roadway. This road will receive a slurry seal in about 10 years. About the 20-year time frame, we would do some corrective measures, some deep patching, and come back and re-slurry the roadway. During the course of the year, we would crack seal the road to make sure that all the cracks are filled up so that water doesn't infiltrate and degrade the paving. We have a real high freeze-thaw situation here at the city, or within the region, I should say. And basically what the freeze-thaw is that we get water in the pavement, it thaws out during the winter, and then freezes at night, and so we have a lot of freeze-thaw here within the region.
Local contractors handle the heaviest repair work. The city's pavement management program inventories, assigns a PCI range, and prioritizes roadway repairs.
Based on the PCI and funding available, we take that priority of projects to City Council for review each year, and get a budget authority approved.
Getting through City Council budgeting is just job one in planning projects.
There is quite a bit of coordination. We coordinate with our sewer and utility division to make sure that if there's a sewer or storm drain line that needs to be rehabilitated, we coordinate the street project with the utility project, as well as Tumwa and NV Energy. If they have a facility that needs to be rehabilitated, we'll coordinate the street project with those facilities. The recently completed projects is obviously Richards Way, is where we're here today. Third and Quail, P Street, and DeVere were just recently completed.
So, where's next on the pavement priority list? Do you own commercial property in Sparks? You want to sell it, maybe clean it up a bit first? Well, if so, then you need to know about new federal funding that may be able to help you. To find out if you qualify, contact the City of Sparks and ask about the Brownfields program. Now here's how it works.
We have a drill rig here today, and we are taking soil and groundwater samples, and we will take those samples to the lab to verify that there either is contamination or there's not contamination. We are looking for petroleum and hazardous materials. The property owner, this is a program at no cost at all to the property owner.
We received a grant from the EPA to help and assist property owners to get Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental assessments done on their property.
The properties are generally located in the redevelopment district. They're properties that have had past use. These properties are generally things like old service stations, properties that have had heating oil, underground heating oil tanks, properties that maybe have been used for light industrial use.
We are going to hopefully start seeing some redevelopment because of this grant, especially in this economy. Any development is exciting, but one of the first steps is you're going to have to find out if your property's been contaminated or not. Phase 1 is basically a paper research of the history of what's happened on this property. So it identifies if there's any potential contamination on it. If there is any potential, then we go into a Phase 2. And we have, in this grant, we have money to do Phase 1s and Phase 2s. We've surveyed 22 properties so far, and 9 of them have been found to have no contamination on them. So they're cleared to go for redevelopment, so that's good news. And then 9 of them we're looking at right now doing Phase 2s.
That's exactly what's going on behind us. We have chosen these sites based on their location and the owner's interest in redevelopment. So now what we're trying to do is we're either trying to verify that there is contamination or verify that the sites are not contaminated.
Anybody who's going to be looking at redeveloping or selling their property, the banks most likely are going to require that you have a Phase 1 because they don't want to take on the risk of giving you a loan and then finding that there's major contamination. A Phase 1 typically costs about $5,000, so it's saving the property owners about $5,000. And then if we have to do a Phase 2, generally they run about $15,000. So total, that would be $20,000 benefit to the property owner.
The laboratory will take the samples and they will analyze them. They will be returned to us. We do a final report for the city.
If you're a property owner, please give me a call. I'd be glad to talk to you and maybe we can assist you. You can reach me at 353-7878.
When most of us think about a fire department, we think of the men and women riding on the big red trucks. But there's a lot more to running a fire department than just operations. There's actually 4 departments in the Sparks Fire Department: operations, administration, prevention, and training. The man in charge of keeping all of Sparks Fire running is Sparks Fire Department Chief Andy Flock. Our Spotlight on Sparks cameras caught the chief on the job and asked him about his years of service and his goals. This picture is the first motorized fire apparatus purchased by the Sparks Fire Department in 1917. It boasts a 300-gallon per minute pumper chemical truck with a whopping 75 horsepower. Today's pumper trucks are a far cry from those early days that are reflected on the faces of the fire chiefs.
Fire chiefs in the city of Sparks have all come from inside the organization. There's a wonderful photo, or it's actually a portrait or picture, if you will, in our lobby at Fire Station 1. And it's representative of over 60 years of fire chiefs. And all of them have come through the ranks and have had the fortunate opportunity to become fire chief within this excellent organization.
Andy Flock had no idea his photo would one day fill the spot labeled 10th Fire Chief.
You know, having grown up in this area, I moved to the city of Reno when I was 8 years old. Went to Jesse Beck Elementary, went to the old B.D. Bellinghurst High School, went to Wooster High School, of course went on to college here. I've been vested in this community for the majority, if not all, my life.
Some 92,000 people live within the 38 square miles that make up the Sparks city limits. About a dozen fire stations answer an average of 25 emergency calls each day. So how did Fire Chief Flock find himself at the top of this organization?
I had an indoor job. I used to work at Washington Medical Center, which is now Renown Medical Center. I lived in a house very close to the city garage, and I happened to see a lot of fire engines going by. I had a desire to work outside, outdoors again. And so I started talking to some of the firefighters, and it appealed to me. So I went back to school, got my degree, tested for fire departments, and was fortunate to get hired as a volunteer in 1983 with the city of Sparks. In 1984, I was fortunate enough to get hired full-time, and I moved up through the ranks and became fire chief.
The department's mission is providing the highest level of fire prevention, fire suppression, rescue, emergency medical care, and related services to the citizens, as well as businesses and visitors of the city of Sparks. Chief Flock's job is maximizing safety resources in a world of smaller budgets for public safety.
A lot of what I do, we are trying to continue to maintain at the current staffing levels that we have, as well as continue to provide excellent equipment for our personnel to use. In difficult times, obviously, we've had to cut budgets on both the personnel side and the equipment side. This piece of apparatus behind me, this regional, this hazardous materials vehicle, was actually acquired through a grant. I've got a staff of 90 people. We used to have 117. Due to the economic downturn, we're down to 90 people. 87 of those are sworn people. Includes my fire suppression staff, as well as my fire prevention officer. As we've seen a loss of personnel within our organization, these guys have stepped up and taken on more, and they continue to do more and more and more. And I'm very proud of the people within the Sparks Fire Department, and I want you to know that these are some quality people in our organization.
Chief Flock is the first to point out that great service comes from a great staff, no matter the size.
We decided to reduce the staffing levels on all our fire apparatus from 4 personnel to 3. And what that did, that allowed us to keep our stations open. Every station is staffed. And what we want to do is we want to provide service to all the incidents that we go on. And a rapid response is really key to a lot of those incidents. Getting there fast to change an outcome. What I like to tell people is, how long can you hold your breath? We try to get there as quickly as we can, provide those interventions that's going to save a life.
If history repeats itself at Sparks, then one day, one of these firefighters will climb the ranks and fill the 11th spot on the wall in the Hall of Fire Chiefs. We close this installment of Spotlight on Sparks with the Mayor and City Council honoring U.S. Olympian Jake Dalton. Jake was one of the 5 members of the U.S. men's gymnastics team at the London Olympics. Jake, who was from Sparks, represented his nation with grace and dignity. We are proud of our hometown hero. Well, we're just about out of time, and that does it for another installment of Spotlight on Sparks. It's happening here. We hope you enjoyed meeting some of the city staff working for you, and we urge you to visit livingwithfire.info, because the information there saves lives and because it takes a community to survive a wildfire. Please be safe. I'm Adam Mayberry. Thanks for watching.